Hello and welcome to the last unit of Philosophy 350 WI, Philosophies of Sex and Love. I am Dr. Patricia Grosse, and I've been your professor this summer here at Finlandia University. This unit is titled Our Body of Lies. In this unit, we're diving into sex, seduction, truth, and falsity in the realm of love and lust. Let's begin. We're in week 7 of our 8-week course. This week is titled Lying to Our Loves. We'll be looking into 3 modes of lying: lying to a potential partner, lying to a current partner, and lying to ourselves. We will explore each of these concepts in each of the readings for this week. But let's look at the quote on this page for a moment. Of all the lies I've heard, I love you was my favorite. This is from geckoandfly.com. Of all the lies I've heard, I love you was my favorite. How does this make you feel? For a bonus to your final paper, write a 250-word reflection on this quotation that cites the course materials for this week. Send this to me by Friday at 11:59 p.m. Let's make this bigger, huh? Well, it made it wider. Here it is. So here are your assignments for this week. You have to read The Power of Seduction by Elaine Beauclair and some notes on faking by Hildur Kallman. You're watching This Is What the Life of an Incel Looks Like. That's through Vice Media on HBO, and you're completing your discussion board activities. In this slide, I've given you an outline of the Beauclair piece, and this should aid you in your reading and analysis of the piece. But let's look at a citation from the first page, The Power of Seduction. Seduction does not primarily aim to force sexual compliance, but rather to produce desire. However, desire itself is shifting and opaque. There is not always a clear or lasting quality to what I want. Furthermore, since desire is subject-producing, then to influence another's desires is to participate in their self-formation. Seductive persuasion proceeds not by rational argument, but through play, poetry, and illusion. It might be more accurately associated with beguilement than logos. Even more concerning, seduction involves power plays that can reinforce oppressive roles and facilitate exploitation. Thus, one might rightly worry that seduction is nothing but disguised coercion. Plato's Phaedrus examines this concern in considerable depth. One of its central questions is, can seduction be both persuasive and just? Can seduction be both persuasive and just? It's a challenging question, is it not? Seduction does things to another person. It seeks to overwhelm the other and cause the other to feel and think the way the seducer wants. Is the seducer necessarily good? I am sure many of you have personal experiences saying no, not at all. Let's look at the last page of this chapter. For Socrates, seductive speech is not an art of persuasion, but a manner of questioning fundamental to the pursuit of self-knowledge. It is a manner of fashioning one's desires, not in order to subdue the other, but by virtue of opening oneself up to the other. This is the seductive character of Socratic speech. His is a playful mode of self-discovery, where one engages the other not as a subordinate, combatant, or authority, but as an ally, not only in the shared pursuit of the truth that lays behind our desire, but with the hope, indeed the conviction, that the good is something to be held in common, not as only lovers, but also as friends. I want us to think, so we have this essay here that is supposed to be about seduction. We're hearing about seduction and seductive speech. And we're opening up questions about what seduction actually is. And then we're given this talk about a Platonic dialogue, one that we didn't read for this course, but we could have if we had more time. A dialogue that's about seduction and gives a critique of seduction as well as a kind of good seduction. But I think sometimes it is possible to think that I always think about Augustine, to think that Socrates is a good seducer. If we look back and think about Alcibiades from the Alcibiades speech at the symposium, we see a person that, has he been seduced by Socrates? Or is this what happens when Socrates' form of seduction goes badly? It's something that we might question as we move along. But let's look at the next chapter on our list, some notes on faking. And I truly hope you find as much delight in this chapter by Kallman as I have. Kalman discusses in this chapter two kinds of faking: faking out of love for a partner, wanting to meet their expectations, and faking to end a sexual encounter. Let's look at the passage from the first section on 258. It seems that contemporary ideals surrounding sexuality converge with quests for not only pleasure and love, but also for experiencing what is conceived of as normal and successful sexuality. This chapter suggests that even deception that is performed out of love risks becoming self-defeating. Not only is there a risk of deterioration of trust within that relationship, but also the experience of controlling sexual encounters through faking may become habitual. That is, the strategy to gain some control of the sexual situation may ultimately, and contrary to intentions, make it difficult not to respond with faking in similar circumstances later on. Throughout the essay, Kalman discusses the problematic nature of the heteronormative nature of orgasm. What counts as orgasm, what counts as sex is defined by certain tropes, thus tying us all into this kind of knot. I misspelled knot. Not right here. Tying us into some kind of knot, trying to perform something that perhaps ought to be more playful. We go and we run these kind of roles, and we think that we ought to act like a certain way because of who knows where we picked up these like particular heteronormative roles. Was it a movie? Was it a pornography? Was it something we overheard someone say as a child? Who knows? But all of us are in a lot of ways constrained by heteronormativity, despite perhaps not being hetero or not being what we call straight. So we'll discuss alternatives to orgasm, and specifically male orgasm, next week. But it's important to think about this. If a person, especially a woman, but in this case we hear about women and men, is used to faking an orgasm, then they might end up having to always fake an orgasm. So it's a lie we're telling the other that traps us in that particular lie. And so, in speaking of lies, let's look to the next thing. Your final piece of media to consume this week is alarming and seemingly incongruous with our readings. However, a kind of lie occurs in the incel, involuntarily celibate, mostly heterosexual men. The lie that they are owed sexual gratification from others, mostly women, and that these sex deniers are sluts who only want a certain kind of man, sometimes known as a Chad. This lie is akin to the lie of faking it. It leads one to close off the possibility of something better, something transformative. By blaming the other, members of this group are unable to grow. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this particular video. So let's look at your discussion board assignments. You're reading two essays that explore the philosophical and ethical ramifications of truth-telling, seduction, and lying in and outside of the bedroom. You're also watching a short film that depicts a troubling community on the internet that radicalizes men who deem themselves to be involuntarily celibate. This week, you must write a 250-word post discussing one of the essays of your own choice and the assigned documentary, and 3, your own response to both of these pieces of media. You must end by posing 2 to 3 inviting questions to your colleagues. This original post is due by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m., and you must respond to your colleagues' posts and their responses to yours by Friday at 11:59 p.m. Okie dokie, that's all for today. Goodbye, and see you next week for our week 8, last week of the term. Okay, bye.